Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. We break down every football game involving SEC teams every week. Today we get to Tulsa's road trip to Ole Miss. That game is going to start at 4 Eastern. Ole Miss a 20-point favorite with a 62.5-point over-under. You can see it on the SEC network. Blake, Ole Miss has not played much of a schedule, but has looked very good. And meanwhile, Tulsa has had maybe two pretty interesting games and is really just throwing the ball all over the yard.
Yep, number one in the country in passing offense to this point, 413 yards per game, thrown for 12 touchdowns. It's kind of, I guess, on the flip side, that would tell you that they have not done a lot of rushing. So it seems like their approach is pretty clear. I think heading into this game in terms of what they're going to try to do and see if they can challenge Ole Miss a bit there, just in terms of throwing the ball down the field. But on the flip side, like we said, we talked about Ole Miss, and they haven't played a great schedule to this point. But to me, it's all about what you do with the schedule that you have. And I think to go on the road and just get a completely dominant win at Georgia Tech, I think that builds even more momentum now for this team. We always talk about the look ahead possibilities and everything, but I think Ole Miss is a team that, it seems like that's less of a thing for them because they know they still are kind of a team that is putting everything together. And the schedule, I think, has been perfect for them just to be able to, figure out the quarterback situation, to be able to realize that their rushing attack is pretty fantastic. And then on the defense, tweaking some things there. So I feel like it's a good setup for Ole Miss, but like you mentioned, it is a team that's going to come in and certainly has put up some yardage and pass the ball a bit. So
Well, I think the offensive versus defensive matchup when Tulsa's on the field is pretty interesting. Ole Miss has allowed 4.3 points a game. Now, again, the schedule has been what? It's been not good. And I'm trying to look to see exactly the teams. It's been Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech. So Tulsa probably the best team Ole Miss will have faced to this point in the year. You mentioned the stats about Tulsa throwing the ball. Goodness, they've got, 4 guys over 150 yards receiving so far, which that's really hard to do. They've got Keelan Stokes has got almost 500 yards receiving. That's crazy, 457. But Ole Miss is only giving up 264 yards a game. Again, it's not been tested like this, but this is kind of one of those things where the over-under is going to be a little tough to decipher because you got opposite things screaming at you there.
yeah, it is. And if you're looking for a common opponent in terms of SEC so far, obviously Tulsa's played Northern Illinois, beat them 38-35. Vanderbilt just coming off their game, won that one on the road 38-28. Of course, Kentucky plays Northern Illinois this week. So, so if that's something that you you try to find some sort of correlation between some of the things there, like you said, it's a hard game to figure out just because I think it's because of what we've seen with Ole Miss's schedule so far. Like you mentioned, I think in terms of offenses, this is probably the best offense Ole Miss has seen to this point because we talked about just the struggles with Georgia Tech. Troy was kind of a rebuilding offense, I think, and Central Arkansas. So I think, yeah, I mean, to me, this is one that will at least, I don't want to say, like, I don't even know if challenge is necessarily the right word, but I think there may be some times where you see kind of Tulsa, just throwing the ball, throwing the ball, throwing the ball, and really trying to challenge a bit of that Ole Miss secondary that to this point I don't think has been necessarily challenged all that much. I think the teams that have put up yardage against Ole Miss, it's basically out of necessity, right? They've been down so much that they've just had to kind of pass the ball a bit. So it's an interesting dynamic with this one. But I'm agreeing with you. I think this is the best team Ole Miss has played so far. I just don't know exactly where. Again, if you want to do the Tulsa Northern Illinois thing and draw some parallels there, I guess you could. But I just think it's still a game that Ole Miss, I think, considerably on the lines, is something where I feel like they're going to have an advantage in this one. So,
Well, Troy did throw for 286 against Ole Miss in the opener on 40-something attempts. I think 48, I think. So, threw for yards, not crazy efficient there. But here's the thing. Ole Miss has had 13 sacks in 3 games. And when you can get that kind of pressure, that derails a lot of drives, Blake.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I think teams have had to throw just because they've out of necessity against Ole Miss, and I think that will be something too, is getting pressure here and causing some turnovers. I know last year Tulsa was a team that turned the ball over a bit. I'd have to pull up their numbers now. I don't know why it's not showing on their overall stats that I have in front of me, but I think that is something, getting pressure and forcing turnovers, whether that's strip sacks or forcing some errant throws. I think that could be something that becomes the theme of this game, just based on that with Tulsa. So I think again, it is one where the Ole Miss defense was really what we talked about coming to the season. We knew we had some questions at the quarterback. You felt like their running game was going to be one of the strengths, and it has been thus far for sure. But I think the defense has been, and it's hard to say, right? Because it's who they've played, and I feel like though you've seen some improvement in several different defensive areas to this point. But I do think this could be a game that, look, if they come out and shut down, this kind of team that it is going to pass the ball a bit, then I think you're really looking at Ole Miss and saying, all right, this team is ready to go for
Yeah.
SEC play. And I think that's probably what you're watching the most in this one.
Tulsa also has given up 8 sacks this year, by the way. Before
Their
we talk
offensive
about the
line
other
is not a strength. Yeah. So
yeah, and that may be trouble, which I think I'm starting to think I know where I'm going in this one. But we've got some big games coming up this week to add a little extra excitement. We at Southeastern 14 are going to be making predictions in the Stakes app. That's STAKES. We want to hear from you guys if you agree or disagree with our takes. So go to playwithstakes.com/14. Sign up for stakes. Place your predictions on our questions. If you use the invite code Southeastern14 when you sign up, you'll get a double welcome bonus. Okay, Blake, on the other side of the ball, I think what we know that Ole Miss is probably going to do is try to run the ball and run the ball a lot, and it's been very good at that. We said before the season, Zach Evans may be the best running back in the league. So far, he has averaged almost 7 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. They got some other guys on that team that can carry the ball. That might be the deepest running back group in the league. I think Jackson Dart will probably start this week. He's been fairly efficient, 9.4 yards a throw, 3 touchdowns, although 2 picks. This is just a game where Ole Miss has a good offensive line. I think it's just going to try to overwhelm Tulsa in that regard. And frankly, that's what Ole Miss has done exceptionally well so far. So I don't see why that formula really changes here. Do you?
no, I think the game is won on the offensive line in terms of Ole Miss running the ball, the defensive line in terms of getting pressure and forcing turnovers. I think that's the name of this game. I just, if you're looking at it on paper, I think those are the two of the biggest things that stand out. And I mean, you said even in the league, I think that's one of the best running back groups in the country, probably just in terms of their versatility and what they can do with Ole Miss. So, yeah, I feel like the more you look at this one, I think the most intriguing aspect is just knowing that the Tulsa is going to have to throw the ball here, and can they challenge Ole Miss a bit in the secondary? We haven't really seen that yet. I think because of the who Ole Miss has played, so I'm curious to see kind of how that plays out. But I still think at the line of scrimmage, it's going to be where Ole Miss can kind of have a chance to really take control of this game, and I feel like it just sets up pretty nicely for them. So, um, I, I think it's one where this is a tough game to predict because it is up to 20 and a half on the spread. The over under, like you said, I think it's 61 and a half. I could see the over with this just in terms of points being put up, but I still think Ole Miss is just, again, I think you will see some defensive turnovers here in terms of causing some of those, maybe picking up a touchdown via that way. I just think that they probably cover this 20 and a half spread. So
Okay. Tulsa's given up 3.9, 3.4, 4.2 yards per game rushing the ball, just as a point of fact. I'm feeling the under, and I'm feeling Ole Miss to cover on this. We're not professional bettors, but what are you thinking here?
yeah, I mean, I think I would probably take Ole Miss to cover, minus the look ahead possibility that we always talk about. And I think I would, even though I said the over is a possibility just with points, I think the under just with Ole Miss's defense could kind of keep that under that spot.
Did
So
it
yeah,
last week.
I'll go with you on that one.
All right. We are previewing all games. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you again soon.